Minecraft Manhunt Lore. Seems impossible, right? These videos are challenge videos, but with a little bit of a creative borrowing from a face that is probably all too familiar to you guys, I strung together every single manhunt into a single storyline. And subscribe, because here's the twist. Dream, the person who everyone is rooting for, is the villain of the story. There's much more though, because this storyline, apart from explaining all the manhunts in one coherent universe, also gives us the setup, backstory, and some of the motivations for the literal Dream SMP. Manhunt introduces us to our two main characters, Dream and George. And remember, once we're talking about characters, they have to have motivations for what they're doing. They're not just filming a YouTube video. And this is where we start to finally explain why Dream is the villain of the Manhunt series, because Dream's character's entire motivation throughout this entire series is to kill the Ender Dragon, right? But in addition to this, his motivation is in character to eradicate Ender Dragons as a species. Now here is where we tie in what makes this theory all make sense, and we're gonna have to time skip just a little bit ahead to properly explain it. You see, apart from the Manhunt, there's one other video on YouTube, just one, where Dream is in character as running away from the hunters. And it's this video which canonizes and unlocks so much of the theory. You see, Dream was in character, or canon at least, in this game theory video. But the thing is, right, with Dream appearing in this game theory video in character as if he was doing a manhunt, that automatically canonizes in the Manhunt universe game theories on how and what the mobs of Minecraft are, from the Warden to the Ender Dragon, and the lore of Minecraft in general as a game. Game theories take on Minecraft as a whole game is huge, spanning a little over 8 hours of pure theory crafting, but instead of giving you the whole thing, here are the relevant parts. In essence, MatPat and the rest of the theorists have, canonically, that is their characters here too, discovered that before you as the player play Minecraft, that there existed a secret race of hyper-intelligent builders, they call it, beings that built the structures you see in-game today, and that eventually, after a tragedy trapped them inside the end, they became Endermen. After they were trapped in the end, however, they didn't instantly turn into Endermen, instead slowly transforming into Endermen over time by eating chorus fruit. But again, that's beside the point. Before the transformation, these builders built what we now know as the End Cities, and here is where I'm going to put my own spin on MatPat's MCU, his Minecraft universe. You see, End Cities have one aspect that makes them incredibly interesting. Their most valued part, the End ships which house the incredibly useful Elytra wings, but also that have a dragon head as a figurehead for the ship. Now, all of this, plus some other things, led the game theorists to believe that the Ender Dragon is actually the last of an endangered species, who had been hunted to the point of extinction by these master builders, and that is where my theory branches off. You see, game theory thinks that the Ender Dragon we see in-game is the last Ender Dragon ever. I beg to differ. I think that Ender Dragons are a declining species, sure, but they're not that close to extinction yet. And the reason for this is that Ender Dragons are, well, a formidable foe. Even the best players die to the dragon every now and again. And I think the ancient builders who were hunting the dragon, who I'm just going to call the slayers at this point, were also starting to dwindle alongside the dragons, because a few were dying in every assault. I should mention here that not all of the ancient builders were slayers. Some of them, the protectors let's call them, realized that the dragon is actually neutral and is just protecting her home, her children, decided to protect the dragon from the slayers, leading to even more clashing and fighting, and thereby even more slayers dying. Every slayer's objective is to kill all the remaining Ender Dragons, even though the dragons as a species aren't really harming anyone. The slayers are just killing them for sport, basically. And finally, that brings us back to Dream, who we can see now is quite obviously one of the bad guys, is quite obviously a slayer. So let's recontextualize the manhunts now, shall we? We have Dream, a slayer who has one goal: to kill the Ender Dragon, to eradicate this species, and George, a lone protector who has managed to use the old knowledge of the protectors to not only track down Dream, but give himself infinite respawns, and Dream, well, loses the first manhunt.
Oh my god, I'm stupid. No! What?
All the while, in the background, Minecraft as a game is slowly chugging along, each update slowly manifesting as part of the game's history, and this is important because it helps us place the manhunts on the game theory timeline and explain some stuff in the future. You're going to want to stick around to the end for this because it is crazy. Okay, so the question must have crossed your mind by now: how are there multiple manhunts? This theory seems only to apply to one manhunt at a time, but there's another much more speculative and much deeper layer to this. You see, when you enter the end, the only way to leave alive is by killing the Ender Dragon, which, as we said, is Dream's goal, and thereby freeing the end according to the Minecraft achievement system.
Go on! What? What's happening? What?
What is it?
What?
Wait, what? Wait, what? The dragon wasn't... Wait, did I kill the dragon? No, the dragon wasn't dead!
No, it didn't die. You didn't get the achievement.
It doesn't... That's not how that works!
What?
It's the...
What? What? It's What? Let's go! Again, green man!
Now, we're gonna get just a tad speculative, because you see, every time that Dream wins a manhunt, the portal canonically reacts to him differently than it would a normal player, because he's a part of the ancient race, he's a slayer. These people literally created guardians out of nothing, and that power transports Dream, and by proxy the rest of the hunters, thanks to their proximity to the next world, where he can fight the next dragon, where he can do the next canonical manhunt. But hold on, that's all great for if Dream wins, but what about the times when he loses? We know that since Dream has one life in the manhunt, he can't respawn in that same world, right? So wouldn't one manhunt lost mean that the cycle is broken forever? And while that's possible, I have another explanation for this. You see, Manhunt started in 1.14, and crucially, there has not been a single manhunt where a woodland mansion is discovered. Going back to Minecraft theory for a second, the inhabitants of these mansions, the Illagers, are on a quest to try and conquer death. That's why the Evokers drop tokens of undying, amongst other things, and that is why the series continues even when Dream loses. How? Well, you see, when Dream steps through the Lost End portal, every player in that Minecraft seed, whether in the overworld, nether, or end, is transported to the next one with him, and that's why the manhunts start in the way they do, with the hunters in a circle around Dream. Now, since we know he can't respawn and can't travel to a new world, when Dream loses a manhunt, he's stuck in this sort of limbo state, stuck between life and death, but still able to interact with the world. And what he does is he starts looking without a map for the extremely elusive woodland mansion, because using the Illager's help, his power, and his unique limbo state, he probably knows how they could transport his ghost to a different dimension, which is especially plausible when you consider that methods of trapping and transporting a ghost exist in the game in the form of soul sand and soul soil. However, Dream never actually manages to pull this off, with the reason for that being the hunters, who are protectors, kill the dragon when Dream is gone, opening the portal, and then respawn it before jumping into the portal, dragging Dream into the next world with them, making sure he can't use the Illager's help to escape their clutches. This also explains how Dream canonically gets better so quickly at the manhunts, because every time he wins or loses, he's constantly learning and improving on his skills, making every manhunt's clutches that much more impossibly cool. Now, let's get to another mystery that this theory poses. How on earth does the number of hunters keep increasing, and why is it incremental? Why does it go up so regularly in canon when everything else about the manhunt is chaotic and unpredictable? Well, the answer is fairly simple. You see, we know that once a hunter joins the series, they're going to be a hunter for the rest of the series, like George, for example, who is still getting rolled in manhunts to this day.
You got your baited. You got your baited. You got your baited.
But the reason for this is that when Dream or the hunters step through the portal and the energy sucks them into the next world, there's a chance the person in the next seed over, metaphorically, the person closest to that seed, the manhunt seed at that time, gets sucked into the next manhunt as well. They've all been extra hunters because, as I said before, the number of slayers has basically dwindled to a negligible number, to the point where we can only consider Dream to be the last slayer, whereas the protectors are much more widespread and therefore much more likely to be in the next world. Of course, this isn't guaranteed, which is why a new hunter isn't added after every manhunt. Before we can get to reintroducing the game theory and how they fit in, which is outrageously cool in my opinion, so stick around, there's the capstone to this theory, something which I think is perhaps the most insane part of the entire thing. How the manhunts are actually the backstory for the Dream SMP. Now, hold on, I'm not going to get into the Dream SMP lore as such here, but the parallels and explanations to the Dream SMP being related to the manhunt's races are just too good to pass up explaining. You see, I think that after the third manhunt, in which Dream won, they weren't transported to the next manhunt. Oh no, I think they were taken to the Dream SMP. There, they formed a truce, promising not to kill the dragon, and with their power and the help of Callahan, who is a literal god in the Manhunt universe who scouts the seas before the actual manhunts in real life, they sealed off the end portal. This is also why Dream XD is who people see enforcing the rules of the server, because it was Dream's decision ultimately to form a truce with these people, and this also means that as more and more people beat Minecraft in their own worlds, they were either transported to the Dream SMP by their end portal and the sheer power of adjacency to something of such monumentous importance, and eventually materialized in the world like they were always there, just like the Minecraft updates did, like the Bastions were quote-unquote always there. The Dream SMP storyline takes place, and in the end, everyone betrays Dream, leading to Dream himself breaking the truce with the rest of them and killing the Dream SMP's dragon, launching himself headfirst into the next manhunt. This also helps to explain how the hunters that were added later in the manhunts were added. Having been on the Dream SMP, it makes sense that they'd be in close proximity to the future manhunts, and therefore that much more likely to be warped to the next manhunt when an end portal is activated. Remember, the timeline isn't the same way it is in real life, and that brings us back to the very start of the video. Because you see, if we take a quick glance at the content of the game theory video that sent us down this rabbit hole, you can see that Dream is discussing the Warden, a 1.18 mob that is not only yet to release, but hasn't even been seen in snapshots yet. In essence, in between one of the manhunts before 1.18 drops, Dream is logged into the Minecraft world that MatPat is in with George and Sapnap, and this is a world that Dream accidentally loaded for MatPat, who, not being a player, can't do such a thing, and thus is stuck theory crafting based on Dream's smoking trail of dead dragons, and thus he thinks that all the dragons are dead. And thus, Dream appears in the video, fully completing the story and giving the most popular series on Minecraft YouTube, lore.